Hello and welcome to the Varietal Show. If you've never been here before, well, thanks for checking us out. You're watching Varietal Literature's YouTube page, which is a cozy little corner of the internet for people who like narrative and love stories. And what we're going to do here tonight is we're going to play a solo tabletop RPG, specifically one we've played before, as some people in the chat have already observed. And we will try and make a continuation of a story out of it. You don't need to have seen the first stream if to really grasp this one. I'm going to re-explain some stuff. I'm not going to reread the whole story from last year, but it's not going to matter too much. If you do want to watch the original stream, if my memory works, I should link it in a pinned comment below when this video is no longer live. But my memory doesn't work, so if it doesn't, it's on my webpage, on my YouTube page somewhere. Which is what you want to do as a viewer. Hopefully I remember and make that easy for you. Anyways, yeah. We are, I'm going to get pretty quick to the game because I'm already starting a bit late here today because I was busy being blown away by the Game Awards. Actually, I know that's not the cool thing to say when you're doing indie tabletop RPGs, but man, they are knocking it out of the park this year. Anyways, let's get back to what we're meant to be doing here, which is the Varietal Show. This part of the show is called litgames. It stands for literature games, and it is a sort of catch-all term for a bunch of indie solo tabletop RPG genres, like lyric games and poetry games and solo tabletop RPGs and whatever else. And the one that we're playing today is one that we've played before. I think the short name for it would be Santa Claus, spelled C-L-A-W-S, but the official name for it is the Clause of the Substitute Santa. And the basic premise, I'm going to read to you right now because it's been a year since we played it. You are a horrible monster. You owe Santa Claus a favor. Big Red is taken mighty sick and it's Christmas Eve. They're calling in all their favors, getting people to sub in and make some deliveries. That means you've got to leave the safety of your cozy cave, grab a sack, and go ho-ho-hoing. Don't mess it up and have a Merry Christmas. So, that's the basic premise. Now, last year, we created a monster, and I assume we want to return to that monster, called Cremboblin the Nog Man. Which is still a great name. Cremboblin the Nog Man, and I will remind you of his 3 terrible cryptid features, which is a part of the game. You set up 3 terrible cryptid features. This was all stuff from my chat. The first was a foul stench that can drive mere mortals mad. That might have been me. Has 15 mouths that are constantly drooling thick eggnog, but we travel on our drool like a slug. A broad mane of writhing snakes who love the bright lights of Christmas. We had a location where we lived, but I don't think that's going to matter too much here. And the reason that Santa was asking us to do a favor is we got stuck in the closet of a Shoggoth. If you guys don't know a Shoggoth, it's a character from Cthulhu, Lovecraft stuff. Having an extramarital affair, and Santa saved us from the wrath of the returning Cthulhu spawn. Again, that doesn't really come up. And then we told a story, which I'm not going to reread here because it was a little on the longer side, but we told a story about Cremboblin delivering actually pretty much to one house. So we get, what will happen is we'll get prompts from dice rolls, and those prompts, which I'll show you, they're very small, but you can see them here. We roll a d20 and a d6. And so at the start of each turn, you will roll a d20 and consult the chart to determine what delivery you're making. And then each of these d20s areas are prompts of the houses that we're delivering to and sort of a situation about them. And then we add 1 to our night tracker, which records the tokens or tallies and marks on our paper, how many things we get through. And we roll the d6. If you roll above your current night tracker mark, then there's still time for more deliveries. If you roll below it, the monster starts to see the sunrise, and then we gotta stop. I don't really use the d6 thing because it would be unlikely that we're going to get through more than 1, maybe 2 prompts. Ugh. Come on, light. Wake up. Wake up. Wake up. There we go. Okay. Sorry, my light went out there. Okay. So, yeah, I don't think I need to go back through any more details of the game, because the setting up a character stuff we did in the last video last year, so if people want to see that, they're welcome to go watch that. I give a brief description there. I have a proposal for a different premise this year as to why we're doing it again. So we did it last year as a monster. We tried to deliver presents. We got caught. And then we decided that we had good marital advice for these 2 people. And when we tried to give them marital advice, our eldritch horror of our bodies terrified them so badly that one passed out and the other dragged them into the house, screaming, and ruined Christmas forever for them. And that was the way we ended last time. So this time, I think, keeping with this premise of a monster who tries to do the right thing but constantly somehow makes it horrible, maybe the monster A kind of liked being Santa, and B thinks Santa's stressed out, so he's just going to trap Santa in a cage and take over Christmas this year. I think that's the way I'm going to do it this year. So we'll write that intro. We'll roll our d20. And we'll see what we come up with. Also, are we drinking tea tonight? And I see that we're talking about Mexican food, but are we drinking tea tonight? And if we are, what kind? There we go. All right. It was a frozen evening near it was a frozen evening near the near the North Pole. Forgot how to spell pole there for a moment. This doesn't bode well for how the stream's gonna go. Guys, how do you spell I? It was a frozen evening near the North Pole when Cremboblin in the Noggy mucus and a bathtub collecting the full. Just collecting the noggy mucus of his many mouths. Decided that his good friend Santa Claus was entirely too stressed to do Christmas deliveries this year. Jumpstore says, of course I'm drinking tea tonight. I would have had tea. I boiled the water. I had the tea bag in the cup. And then I realized I just got into some stuff in the Games Awards, and I was like, oh my god, it's like 6:31. I need to go. So I don't have tea tonight. What I do have is Zevia. Freedom from pleasure. What's it taste like? A chemical lab. The I'm drinking a tea. It's called Damiana? Damiana? Relax? There's no way I've said that right. By Numi. Well, I do know the brand Numi. It has rose. I'm going to do this like a, what are those ads? I'm going to do it like a pretentious ad. Like those coffee ads with celebrities. It has rose, lavender, butterfly tea, PT flowers, for a pretty blue color that pairs so perfectly with its calming herbs. Uncle Kitty says we've got to get you a better sugarless beverage, right? You know, honestly, it's not as bad as I'm making it out to be. It's like good in the first half, and then the last half is a disappointment, but it's really not that bad. I don't even need to drink sugarless things. I just started doing it at one point. I don't remember why. And now when I try to drink things with sugar, it's just too much. I'm an old man. I can't handle all that sugar. Numi has some good tea blends. I always swear by them because I can find a blend that fits every mood and occasion. Well, that should have been in my ad too. Numi. A blend for every... Wait, I'll do this again. Take two. Numi. A blend for every mood. It doesn't have a very distinctive flavor, but it's slightly sweet and earthy, like drinking water with a hint of sweet pea juice. I do like sweet peas, though. Uncle Kitty says, sickeningly sweet. Yeah, but in a different way, because it would be a lie to say that fake sugar stuff isn't really sweet. Like, if anything, it's sweeter than sugar on the tongue. But you can really feel it when you drink something with a lot of corn syrup after not for a while. Like, it just sticks and is cloying to your throat in a way. All right. Santa Claus was entirely disastrous to do his Christmas deliveries this year early. No, Cremboblin knew the proud old man would never admit he needed a year off. So, but Cremboblin, I forget who came up with Cremboblin, but what a great monster name. Bravo, whoever that was. It doesn't sound like a name I would have come up with. Honestly, it sounds like a name Jumpstore might have come up with, but I do not remember. And I'd rather die than watch my own streams. No, I'm Canadian. Knew the proud old man would never admit he knew. But Cremboblin was not one to be deterred by boundaries or persistent requests. You know, I'm not big on lavender. Like, I don't really have a problem with it, but it's a flavor I never got that into. That's no judgment on anybody who likes lavender. It's a lovely plant. I do like it in, like, gardens. But in food, I've never found something I really liked. I had a lavender shortbread once. It was okay. But I felt like they were competing for my taste buds. Not working together. Okay, so like cheapness aside, I'm talking like quality tea. What's the tea that was the least to your taste, but was otherwise a quality tea? Like, I understand that there's going to be bad teas that are just not very well made. But like, it was well made, but just something didn't work for you at all about it. I mean, normally it's a zombie wolf thing to come up with the names, but Cremboblin doesn't seem like a zombie wolf name to me. Zombie wolf usually has sort of Latin or Greek names. Now, what is it? No, Cremboblin knew the proud old man, but Cremboblin was not one to be deterred by boundaries or persistent requests by friends. He was, after all, much older than Santa. He was also stronger. Had several Lipton, like a brewed tea or like iced tea? Because I don't really like Lipton iced tea. I don't really like most iced tea, to be honest. Like, I like iced tea that I make, but like canned iced tea, I've never had one where I've been like, that's good. I guess I do like Arizona iced tea, but that's like a really specific context. That's like you're on a road trip and you're just dehydrated, and it's you basically need water, but it's a little bit better than water. I wouldn't go out of my way to like get Arizona iced tea outside of like a road trip, but I'm fine with it. But yeah, things like Nestea and Lipton iced tea and stuff like that, I don't know. There's something about it that never really worked for me. Again, no judgment to people who like it. He was also stronger. He was, after all, much older than Santa. He was also stronger, had several... what's a better way to put this? Had... a much more plentiful crop of mauves. I love lavender and rose flavored things. I'm okay with rose. A lot of people can't handle it because it tastes like potpourri. But I never ate potpourri, so I can't say I understand. Yeah, I'm okay with rose. Like rose water, sweets and stuff like that I like. But I don't want like a ton of it. Like just a little bit in the background I'm okay with. But yeah, lavender was just a bit strong for me, I think. I'm not a big floral person. I'm a berry and herbs kind of person. Had a much more plentiful crop of mauves. The worst tea I ever had was some odd Thai concoction that was sour. It tasted like lime, tea, and nausea. I don't think lime would work very well with tea. Because tea already has a lot of tan and bitterness in it. And lime is kind of on the bitter side of sour. I'm not sure I'd like that. I guess if you really like bitter. Like, I'm okay with bitter things, but yeah. Had a much more plentiful crop of mouths. At least 7 more limbs. Each with a great deal more joints and much more capacity. To break steel and a number of eyes. Rarely consistent as but never so low as to be a mere 2. For a job that required awareness of peering children and the rapid delivery of several packages, Cremboblin saw himself as superior in the task, for the task, superior, more suited to the task than any waddling old fat man in a fur suit. Last year, he had Jumpstart says, Lipton, anything is terrible, Roy. I would not count on I could not on a boat drink what passes for poor people. I don't even think it's a poor people thing. I mean, yeah, there are teas you can pay a lot of money for, but there are some pretty basic teas that are fine, right? Like, you know, there are some grocery store teas that they're okay. Like, they're not going to blow you away, but they're not horrible. But yeah, there are some where I'm like, I don't understand what this is. There's a lot of coffees like that too. Except the difference with coffee is, like, I know my chat doesn't like coffee that much. That's fine. You don't need to come along with me on that. The point is more comparative. The thing with coffee is, like, so much coffee is that same divide, but you never find anything but the Liptons in grocery stores. And if you wanted something that was the interesting parts of coffee, it costs a fortune, and you got to go find some special trendy shop in a big city. And, like, I don't know. I'm hoping that shifts a bit, because there is lots more interesting in coffee and lots more berry flavors and stuff you can get out of them. I heard they made, speaking of angering the whole population, Uncle Kitty, I heard they make a diet iron brew. Now, I know that's a little specific. I think people do know this, but if you really don't, that's fine. It's a drink that's really not popular anywhere but Scotland, but it is so popular in Scotland. Ridiculous. So popular is it in Scotland. It includes it's an orange drink that has a bit of a sort of almost ginger ale quality to it. It's hard to describe, but it's very sweet. Anyways, it has a dye in it that was taken out of food circulation, found to be unsafe and unhealthy. But because Scotland was so committed to keeping iron brew the same as it always was, they made an exception for the factory to still be able to use the dye. That's how popular it was. It changed policy around it. But yeah, so people were flipping out over the idea that there was a diet iron brew. But obviously, like, if you're Scottish, there's a not zero chance that you have a risk of diabetes. And if you have diabetes, you know, and you still want to drink iron brew, obviously that's fine. I get that they're trying to make a thing out of, like, tradition or whatever, but I hope people are mostly just memeing, because there's a good reason to have diet drinks. Cremboblin saw himself as more suited to the task than any waddling old fat man in a fur suit. Last year, in Cremboblin's opinion, he did an excellent job. I mean, I guess I'm kind of of two minds about it. Like, it is good, you know, to take some of the worst things out of her food, but I do feel like sometimes, did you think it was healthy? Like, I don't think that that's the way to look at it, right? Like, it's one thing to, like, not want to, like, push it on kids or something if it's going to make them sick or whatever, but if you're an adult, are you drinking pop because you think it's good for you? Like, no. You know what's happening. Oh, Witchery. Hello, Witchery. Good to see you. Last year in Cremboblin, I'm sorry if you were here earlier. The chat was flooded with taco talk, and I didn't have much to add. I do like tacos, but I didn't have much to add. Canada has no real taco scene. Last year in Cremboblin's opinion, he did an excellent job. If one was to forgive and forget about a few news stories and investigations by the CIA. So this year, as a gift to Cremboblins, I've just been here the whole time. I was just eating. I started it. I made quesadillas. I do like quesadillas. You know what I mean to say when I say I like quesadillas? I like cheese. Let's be honest. It's probably not even a respectable quesadilla that I'm thinking of. I'm thinking of a pocket of cheese. A calzone with a thin crust. So this year as a gift to Santa, well, Cremboblin's good friend Santa Jumpstore says, reminds me of a scene from The Simpsons way back in the day when they were making fun of cigarette commercials where the spokesman says, I don't know what's in them, I just can't stop smoking them. Yeah, I'm not of the opinion that just every human being is fully, you know, independent or whatever else, and that, you know, anybody can make the best decisions. We all make terrible decisions. But I do think that some stuff, you know, it's been enough time, we know what's going on. Those who are still choosing to drink it or whatever else, they know what they're in for. And it's a short life. So this year, as a gift to Cremboblin's good friend Santa, and for no other reason, Witcher says, listen, I have great respect for Mexican food, but tortillas are really... Mexican food is kind of like Italian food in that unless you live in the region, you're not going to ever really make it authentic. And if you did try to make it authentic, it would A, cost a ton of money, and B, a bunch of like second-rate stale versions of the ingredients, because it, like Italian food, is predominantly fresh food made near farms, right? And if you're not near where that kind of stuff grows, you're probably not going to get a great version of it. So I feel like that drive for authenticity is a bit misguided depending on where people live, you know. Some things you can get, a lot of it you can't, or it's like a terrible version of it. I would say I have more to say on that, but I feel like that's encouraging conversations in the chat I don't want to have. But the short version is, I think sometimes the drive for authentic versions of dishes forgets the fact that a lot of people don't live anywhere near those ingredients, and to make the authentic version, is to encourage like a plane to fly it, a half stale version of it to you, and that's not a good model for the world. You should be trying to, you know, maybe take inspiration from those dishes, but make the best version you can with what you can get. Pot roast and cilantro and put it on top. I'm sure Zombie Wolf will be back. So this here is a gift to Cremboblin's good friend Santa. For no other reason, Cremboblin. You can tell I like the name. I'm finding excuses to jam it into every sentence. Stuffed the old man into one of Cremboblin's finest human cages. And left him near the fire to keep warm and dry off, since he grabbed him out of the shower. I forgot one thing. Slurped his wobbling body from the tub. So Cremboblin slurped his wobbling body from the tub and set out to make the best Christmas his horrible nature could survive. He started with his gift to his good. Why is this in quotes? Wrapped his tendrils around the pale, around the doughy body of Santa, whipping him out of his shower with a delightful scream of surprise, then stuffed the old man into one of Cremboblin's finest human cages and left him near the lava in his lair. So Santa kept warm. Uncle Katie says the Loco Taco Truck's nacho cheese tastes like fire. It seriously hurts. That sounds good. Tree says, I will say I'm not really into food that hurts for more than a second. It's one of those so hot there's no flavor, you can just take through the pain condiment. I mean, that's variable, right? Like, it depends on how accustomed your tongue is to heat. There were some objections by the elves. Uncle Kitty said, I don't mind the burn, I just want it to taste good. Yeah, but that's the thing, right? Like, the ability to taste through burn will depend on how accustomed you are to heat. So it's different for everybody. Like, I agree, I don't want to just taste burn. But my threshold for that, especially here in Canada, is so much higher than anybody around me. I think I would probably be like a normal palate for it in the South, but in Canada, oh my god, nobody can handle spicier. Uncle Kitty said their cheese is stronger than raw habaneros. I think maybe like 5 or 6 years ago I probably couldn't do that, but I can definitely do that now. Like, one of my favorite hot sauces is The Last Dab from Hot Ones, if you guys know that show. A friend of mine got me the palette of it, but I'm not pouring like half a bottle in. But yeah, I mean, to give you a context, I have a good tongue for heat. I don't know if I would want it married into all the cheese sauce, though. I think the best way to deal with heat is to try and put it in a way where a person can choose how much they put on, because it's so personal. You know what I forgot to do? I forgot to color the light behind me. What color are we going with today? It's got to be wintry colors, right? Uncle Kitty says, oh, what does it taste like? Well, the first thing I'll say is, yes, it's very hot. Obviously. But it's like a complex... it's not like salty like a Caribbean hot sauce or anything. It's not sour like Tabasco or anything like that. It's very peppery with a lot of like herbs that kind of build up the pepper. Like it's a kind of a mash, if you will. And the pepper, the scorpion peppers or whatever it was he put in that particular bottle, mine's a little bit older. They have a good flavor. They do. I mean, obviously they're hot. But the thing I'll say about it is, yeah, okay, The Last Dab pours a bunch on a wing and that's the stun. But that's not really what that kind of hot sauce is about. It's a good hot sauce for, like, you put a few drops in a soup and you'll get the heat, a little bit of the flavor, but it doesn't overpower the soup you've made, right? And I like that aspect of it. I mean, I think everybody likes purple, right? Let's do purple. Yeah, nacho cheese sauce, like the kind of fake sauce, is more like a mayonnaise, oddly enough, than... I mean, it doesn't have eggs, but it has more in common with mayonnaise than cheese. A Mexican restaurant, yeah. I think the hottest food... What is the hottest cuisine? Like, any cuisine can be crazy hot. I do feel like Indian food, it can be quite hot, but I don't actually think it's crazy hot on the whole. The one that comes to mind for it's either Korean or Thai. Because if you go to a Korean or a Thai place, and it's Thai in particular, and you're like, I want something hot, well, you're in for it. Like, hot means hot. Well, there's Uncle Kitty Thai. Yeah, Thai has that Thai pepper, and it is something. There were some objections by the elves. As Cremboblin collected up the gifts and borrowed Santa's sled. Witcher says it's a lot hotter if they don't give you the white person level. I mean, I have to talk them into it, but I'm a regular, or I was, I can't now because it's got gluten in it, but I was a regular at a restaurant, and it had a chef from a Bombay hotel, so like it was a proper Indian chef. It was really good. Anyways, I used to go there pretty regularly, and I'd be like, okay, listen, I have to do this with a lot of the ethnic food in our areas. Listen, I know how I look, but you need to just give me normal. I have to do that with, if you're weird about meat stuff, maybe mute the chat for a minute. I have to do that with fish heads, like fried fish heads at Japanese restaurants usually. I remember the first time I tried to order it, because the fish head has the best meat in it. But I remember the first time I tried to order it, she asked me 3 times if I knew what it was. They went and they ordered it. We were the only ones in the restaurant. The guy from the kitchen, who could barely speak English, came out personally and was like, I'm not going to try and do the accent, but are you sure? I'm like, I know, I get it. I get it. White people complain about their food having eyes. But it's a really good dish. Like, I feel like it's weird to be okay with killing something and eating it and then just throwing half of it away. Like, that doesn't seem better. Oh, I know that pepper salad, Uncle Kitty. I know that recipe. Hey, Zombie Wolf. Yes. Yes, yeah. All right. India's so big it's great. Yeah, India, to say Indian food is maybe being a little reductive. I really need to write this story. Yeah, Zombie Wolf saying I'm Sicilian. Like, yeah, Italian in particular, it's Sicily. Lots of hot food. Yeah. But you do have to establish it, because I've seen, I don't blame them. I've seen the people who are like, I like hot food, and then they don't know what they're getting into because they don't really know food. They're just trying to be macho, and then they take it out on waiters. So like I get why it's that way. What does a vegetarian get from a Korean restaurant, out of curiosity? So much of it is meat-centric. I'm curious what you would get. Always good to see you, Zombie Wolf. I hope your break is fun. There were some objections by the elves as Cremboblin collected up the gifts and borrowed Santa's sled. The elves were satisfied to let Cremboblin handle Christmas after he gifted them a net of his nog slime that held them fast to the ground. Crembobbling was not what I meant to write, but we should work that in. With Gayak, yo. Oh wait, Gayak. That'll be his ho ho ho. With a Gayak. Lettuce from the lettuce wraps for Korean barbecue. Uncle Kitty says kimchi. Oh my god, I love kimchi. I wish it wasn't such a pain in the butt to make, because it's very, very often that kimchi has something in it that's wheat made. You can make it yourself. It's not impossible. It's not like trying to make fish sauce myself or something. But yeah, making it myself is a huge pain in the butt. And I want to eat a jar of it every day. There's actually quite a few things. I mean, actually in South, I thought you were saying you were in South Korea right now. In South Korea, they have a branch of vegan restaurants. If I remember correctly, they're called Plant. I mean, I assume they must. I just can't think of what it would be. I mean, there's things like rice cakes and stuff, obviously. That's not North American rice cakes. They're like thick noodles. They have another name. Yeah, I will absolutely eat kimchi straight from the jar. Oh my god, I love kimchi. With a Cremboblin. From Cremboblin as he rose into the sky. The night that ended Christmas. Joy began. Okay. Uncle Kitty said it's like chili, everyone does it differently. Uncle Kitty, never have Canadian chili. Just gonna have to take my word on it. I want you to think good things about my country folk. It'd be better if you didn't know. Korean vegetarian, rice veg. Oh, okay. So the one tragic crime against me personally by the fates of the world is that there just is no reliable gluten-free version of gochujang. And it breaks my heart because it's the greatest sauce ever made. You can put it on just about anything and it makes it better. Okay, let's roll the D20. Witchery says I can't eat nuts and beans. They make me gag. I like nuts and beans. But my partner doesn't really like nuts and things. That doesn't make them gag, but they don't love it. I like beans more since I've been able to cook them myself from dry for, obviously for my dietary restrictions. It's an 8. Let's see what an 8 is. If it's the same one from last year, we'll do it differently, but 2 children get set for sleep. This is the first Christmas that they are siblings. Oh no. Though perhaps they've known each other longer, they have little in common, bar a favorite sport, but love each other. Well, they're about to get trauma bonded by the appearance of Cremboblin. Yeah, some people just can't handle the texture of beans, and that's okay. It's a thing. You know, I guess I can see it. They're kind of chalky, and they have skin and whatever else. All right, chat. What should be the name of these 2 children? Why is this the first Christmas they're siblings? Are they adopted siblings? Are they siblings that were split up in childhood and back together? And what is the favorite sport they have in common? Witchery doesn't even like green beans. I'll say green beans is one of those things, like, unless you can get it relatively fresh, it's like eating sticks. Jumpstore says trauma dog bonding is the best bonding. There might be better bonding. It's a reliable form of bonding. Nebob and Junket. Nebob is a great name. I don't know where we're in the world named Nebob. Okay, we'll start there. Keep giving me prompts, though, about this. Cremboblin, when he cleared What's the matter, Smudge? Psst, psst, psst. Smudge is yelling. If he keeps yelling, I'll go and check on him, because I gotta make sure he's okay, but he's probably just being whiny. Cremboblin, when he cleared the snow clouds and finally had the benefit of silver moonlight. Checked. Witchery goes, cat. Jalopy Wolf says, I mean, the current name kids have nowadays. Wouldn't be surprised to see some Kneebobs and Junkets around. I mean, if I have a kid, I'm going to name him Kneebob. It's a perfect way to make sure they never speak to me again. Cremboblin, when he cleared the snow clouds and finally had the benefit of unobstructed silver moonlight. Checked his list. And he had to check it twice, as the spatters of blood were blocking a few vowels here and there. Aw, cute story about a cat there from Witchery. Yes. I agree, Jump Story. I think the best move here is that it is in all ways a very corny classic setup of a sentimental Christmas scene. And then Cremboblin comes in to play the role of like Santa, you know, being the figure of a narrative momentum in that sentimental frame, but because of his horrible misguided eldritch form and mind, he makes it horrible. I think that's basically the joke. I remember in high school, I knew somebody who, and no points for guessing why, named their child Trinity. And apparently that was quite popular for a while, so maybe I have some Trinity. It's not the worst name, but, like, we all know why you're naming it Trinity for when I went to high school. Alright, he's still calling. Everyone enjoy the music. I will leave a note on the screen in case people come in. I gotta make sure he's okay. Alright, this is going to take some explanation, but there was a period of time where Smudge had decided that he did not want to go to the bathroom in his box. Wasn't young or anything, he just decided, come here. Come on, baby. Sit. Sit. There you go. So the way that we got him to do it is whenever shake a bop. There you go. Whenever he would uppy-doo, there you go to the bathroom in it, poop specifically, uppy-doo, there you go. Now come here. Smudge. They all want to see you. Come on. You hate this. I know you do. There you go. There you go. Yeah. Who's a good baby? You just could not be more less happy with this event. Hi. Say hello. He was yelling in during the stream, so I had to check on him. And he went to the bathroom. Anyways, as we were trying to encourage him to keep using the bathroom, the way we did that is when he would do it, we would give him treats. And of course he learned that. So now when he goes poop, he just yells until we give him treats and clean it up, which I prefer, honestly. There you go. It's a rare smudge sighting. I don't know. He likes sitting on my lap normally, by the way. He just hates this. I guess the lights or something he doesn't like. All right. Jump Source says, oh, life is suddenly okay again. Well, I'm glad everyone's cheerful. Yeah, I would put him on the stream more, but I don't want to force him to do stuff he doesn't want to do. And he just doesn't seem to like this. Anyways, there we go. Sorry for the delay, but I'm sure we're all happy to have seen Smudge. And to have heard him, the rare Smudge. Well, it's not rare at all. We think one of his parents was a Siamese. Because we have every reason to believe it was a Siamese. I think it was a Siamese. It was he was sort of rescued from a woman who had way too many cats, but couldn't give any of them away. But anyways, he has the personality of a Siamese. And if you know cats, you know what that means. Lots of noise, very possessive. Zombie Wolf says, I can't believe I get to head back already. I'm going to start baking peppermint bark brownies, eggnog blondies, and on the bright side, I get to make the eggnog for them too, which is a lot of fun. Yeah, it is. Like he says, everyone loves Smudge. If you don't, then I don't know if my stream's the place for you. Okay. But the first... Yeah, you got very lucky there, Zombie Wolf. It's probably been like a year since we've had him on the stream. And you were here for the one small window he was here. As the spatters of blood were blocking a few vowels here and there. Well, that's a compliment, Witchery. The kitty likes you. We're blocking a few L's here and there. The first two names on Cremboblin's absconded list were Nebob and was it Trinket? Junket. Chatters is a great compliment. Witcher says, I don't know why. Because cats are good judges of character. Take the compliment. It's a cat. It's not doing it to spare your feelings. The first two names on Cremboblin's absconded list were Nebob and Junket. An adoptive sibling, an adoptive pair of siblings celebrating their first Christmas together. Oh yes, Jump Store. I did that. I didn't know what sugar plums were, and that was really fascinating to see it done. And when he started, because I'm such a food nerd, I was like, oh, I'll do this. One day I'll do this. This seems like fun for me to just try it. But then I realized all it is just a hard candy. Like at the end of the day, it's the most annoying way to make a hard candy. But I didn't know that it never had anything to do with plums. That was a surprise. The first two names on Cremboblin's absconded list were Nebob and Junkin, an adopted pair of siblings celebrating their first Christmas together. I almost called him Celebrimbor. Cremboblin. Celebrimbor's my father. Jumpstart says I had the exact same reaction. Yeah, I was really hoping it would be something else, but that's really all it is. It's that, and he makes the cherry version, but you can make other versions. It's fruit or nuts that's basically dehydrated and candied, and then you just spend forever layering sugar, just sugar. That's it, just sugar in layer after layer after layer on it, and it's just kind of hard, crunchy candy. And as he said, it doesn't really taste any different than a bunch of things you can already buy. If you look up Max Miller and Sugar Plums, Uncle Kitty, you'll find it. It's definitely a popular video. Nebob and Junkin, an adopted pair sibling and Cremboblin. Cremboblin knew he had to make it special for them in the way that only he could. So he arrived forth on the sleigh, high in the sky. Sliding over the vomited nog mucus, his many mouths endlessly spilled. And whipped the terrified reindeer into a frenzy that brought him cascading in a side slide across the humble roof of the children's home. GS says, I thought it was like sugary almond paste. I just kind of thought it would be a candied fruit. And I guess I was right, but I didn't think it would give you that kind of candied fruit. Like, I will say, before I be too dismissive of it, you know, if you were a kid in a time where most of your food was like porridge, which is the case as we know from the folklore streams, if Christmas time was when you got this rather expensive bag of just pure sugar, that's amazing. How cool is that? You'd be having like, you know, drugs for a child. So I can understand why it would be a big, bright, expectant thing. But in modern times, where we have so many candies, I don't think it has as much appeal. Witchery says, to be fair, a lot of languages call many things apples. That's true. Yeah. Talking about how it doesn't really ever involve plums. GS said, watch Jack Black's new Netflix Christmas movie, Dear Santa. The kid actors were so good. I don't know what to make of that. It's so weird. Is it on Netflix? I thought it was on Prime. Amazon Prime. Or maybe it's on both. It's so weird to me. It feels like a thing that wouldn't have gone straight to streaming. The reindeer. One's Cremboblin. Had sufficiently anchored the sleigh to the roof to ensure the terrified reindeer wouldn't take off. Well, he slithered into the house. I mean, the real question, GS, is when you're watching it, did ads play? Because apparently Amazon Prime decided that you should pay for it and then watch ads. I mean, I guess that's the way it used to work too, but... Is that a horror movie, Uncle Kitty? Because I feel like that would make a good, just sort of quirky film. Cheeses off the barn elves. What are they called? We know this. Wasn't kobolds. Man, I did a stream about those. Was it Tomtas? You're supposed to leave them some milk. And they help with the chores. Horror comedy. Oh, that sounds like it could work. Once Cremboblin had sufficiently anchored the sleigh to the roof to ensure the terrified reindeer wouldn't take off while he slithered into the siblings. He wound his massive but surprisingly soft body like so much overcooked vegetables. Down the chimney until his gibbering form had spread out over the carpets under the glow of Christmas lights. Uncle Kitty is deep frying pork and sauerkraut balls for the new year. I don't think I've ever had one of those. There was an event in one of the... well, actually, there's a version of this event in like many places around Vancouver and Greater Vancouver, which is just sort of like districts outside of Vancouver. Where you would go and you would try a bunch of food at different stands. And it was great because it was a bunch of little local restaurants. And they would make food that you'd never try probably otherwise. You'd have little sampler dishes of them. And the two things that really... The sauerkraut made me think of this, even though it didn't have sauerkraut. The two things that really surprised me was there was this Russian dumpling thing. Not dumpling in the American sense, but like dumpling like in the Korean sense. This Russian dumpling that was really good. And the other thing was... There was some like magic in Ethiopian food where it was the most basic of ingredients. It was like sweet potatoes and carrots and I don't know. It was just really basic stuff, but it tasted better than anything at the whole damn event. And I don't know how they did it. It wasn't obvious why. Jumpstore says maybe for Hanukkah. I'll finally get Max Miller's cookbook. I have Max Miller's cookbook, and I got it just in time to never be able to use it. What was the sport that these two kids, these new siblings, were into? You may have said it earlier, and that was when Smudge started shouting. So what was it? I didn't catch any recommendation. Or if we didn't get any recommendations, I need a recommendation for a sport. I should have reminded you earlier because I kind of have to hard stop until we figure out what sport they're into. Jumpstore says to never be able to use it. Rory, did your kitchen grow lazy and abandon you because it was so disappointed in your cooking? No, it was it was like the same month or close to it that I found out I was a celiac. And even the stuff that isn't made with flour, it's tough too because a lot of what is going on there is not easily replaced. You know, these are rustic recipes where it's not obvious what should replace it. Uncle Kitty says you cook onion and either sausage or pork roast in a skillet, put it in a bowl with sauerkraut, mustard. What kind of mustard? Are you a spicy mustard guy? I like spicy mustards. Spices and breadcrumbs and refrigerate, roll into balls, dip in flour. They don't get dry, hey? Deep frying? I mean, everything there sounds great. GS says double Dutch skipping, hula hooping. I do like that idea. I don't know if those count as sports, though. Jumpstore says, why not soccer? It's a pretty popular sport. You know what soccer makes me think of? Cricket. A sport I know nothing about. Uncle Kitty says, always spicy mustard. What is a good spicy mustard? It's probably going to be something I can't get in Canada, but I often... So, I once got a Dijon mustard where something must have gone wrong at the plant because it was way more spicy than usual, and I loved it. I got that brand again, and it's never been that spicy again, and I'm so sad. GS says I'm being silly. We all are, really. I'm going to go with cricket and then just not understand it. And there can be a meta joke about that. Down the chimney until it's dribbling form and spread over the Christmas lights. Then GS says, I like whole grain Dijon, kind of addicted. I like whole grain Dijon. I also like smooth stuff. Dave's Gourmet Hurtin Habanero Honey Mustard. Boy, that sounds good. Jumpstore says, I heard from an English friend that cricket is a game you can only follow if you're English, and even then it's a bit dodgy. I mean, I think at the end of the day, it's just a game about swatting a ball around, right? Like, I feel like these things are complicated, but maybe not that complicated. I'm not huge into, like, I like playing sports sometimes, but I'm not huge into watching sports, so I've never had much motivation. I like watching rally cars, and occasionally rugby. Goes well with everything, but is powerful. I like horseradish in my mustards. That's why I like that spice in Dijon. It's a horseradish spice. I don't know if it's literally horseradish. I've never actually looked into it, but I assume because it tastes like it. There's a lot of rules to cricket. Well, then it is English, isn't it? Is it big in Australia, Witchery? I know it's big in India. That much I do know. Then, as was, then the great writhing blob heaved and twisted until 2 of its dozens of mouths regurgitated 2 fine, 2 flat cricket bats. Uncle Kitty says you'd like Chinese mustard. I don't think I've ever had it. It's a horseradish mustard. Just don't inhale when eating it. I'm desperately curious. I have had a real hard time finding gluten-free Chinese stuff. It's not surprising to me though, because celiac is not exclusively, but pretty strictly restrained to people of European descent. Like it's not a thing that happens that much in Asia, and as a result, you know, it's one of those places that doesn't have much reason to go through all that extra cost and process. It's also why, you know, people are surprised to learn that one of the best places to be a celiac is actually Italy. Cricket and rugby, can't remember which kind, are the most popular sports here. Maybe followed by tennis, I don't know. I think we all know what the most popular sport here is. And it's not a lie. That is a cliche that holds true. I'm on it, but oh my god, hockey is huge here. 2 of its dozens of mouth regurgitated 2 flat cricket bats. The bats were chosen specifically by Cremboblin to help the new siblings bond. For the all-seeing eye, which spoke to the Red Santa, also spoke to the mind of Cremboblin. Oh, Witchery Lacrosse is so much fun to watch. I've never played it myself. I don't know that I have the hand-eye coordination for it, but it's wild to watch, yeah. That sounds very good, Uncle Kitty, yeah. Jumpstore says, I've heard that every Canadian is born holding a hockey stick. If you ever watch the show, we've talked at Letterkenny. Their portrayal of hockey kids is a very accurate portrayal of how most of Canada regards the hockey kids. We aren't exactly all hockey players. There's lots of fans of hockey here, don't get me wrong. Everyone kind of knows a bit about hockey because you have no choice. But as far as actually beyond like just playing in the street hockey, as far as like ice hockey players, they're a special breed. And I think the best portrayal I've ever seen of them was Letterkenny. You had the hockey kids at school, and they thought they were the coolest people in the world. And that was the end of the list who thought they were the coolest people in the world. Most of them were kind of mean, and a lot of them were bullies. Jumpstore says, if I went to Canada and said I didn't like hockey, how quickly and resolutely would I be kicked out of the country and asked never to return? You wouldn't. I think they'd just move on. I don't think we expect people to like hockey. It's one of the better features there, Witchery. I'm sure that draws in the crowds. Uncle Kitty says women's lacrosse is brutal. Lacrosse is brutal. I had some friends who played it. Not one of them hadn't broken a bone or lost a tooth or something. It's violent. But they were the kind of people where it was like they needed that. And it was a good outlet, you know. It was that or they were just going to get in fist fights with people anyways. So it was a good way for them to go. And they're chanting low in forgotten tongues. With eyes pale in the with eyes black as pitch. Cremboblin you know, it's not that you wouldn't get like I think probably there's a few different reactions you get. You definitely get some people who'd be like, you're an idiot for not liking hockey or whatever. There's definitely people like that. But I think a lot of them would probably try to talk you into it or be like, I'll take you to a game or something like that. You know, and then the rest would just be like, yeah, you're an American. You're not going to get hockey. Like they would move on. If there's one thing I can say about Canadians, they're not as imperialistic about taste in general. Like, I don't want to say that too broadly because there's definitely cases where that's not true, but especially with hockey, I don't know. It's whatever. We generally find, you know, the general opinion here is that football is kind of boring. I don't share that opinion, actually. I kind of like football. But yeah. And I guess it's mainly because hockey is so fast-paced and violent, and football keeps stopping, right? I think that's the comparison that's made. But I don't know. It's just a sport, right? You like it or you don't. Though to be honest, mostly when I think of high contact sports, I just sit there thinking about all the brain damage. Yeah. Yeah, that's a complicated one. Chanting low in forgotten tongues with eyes black as pitch, Cremboblin saw the two dear children in their small room, just a hallway away. The walls were papered in posters of cricket champions mugging with great golden cups and other trophies. And the two siblings, only recently joined as family, were in their soft blankets together, as if it were a warm tent. Jump sources in my only exposure to hockey was when I watched Happy Gilmore. It's not totally wrong. My go-to theory is that it's hard to enjoy a sport if you've never played it. Like watching that sport. But if you play a sport, it can be very entertaining. I don't think that's always true, but I do think there's a lot of people who are like, I hate watching sports and I'll never enjoy it. But I think it's just that you don't really have any connection to what's impressive or important about what you're watching unless you've tried to do it and you know how hard certain things are to do. That's my theory. I once worked as a medic at the tennis world championship. It came around here at one point. This was a long time ago, like over a decade, I think. And one thing that you just do not appreciate watching tennis on TV is how big these guys are. They're huge. I'm not a small person. They're big. Second of all, how big the arena is that they're playing on. It's way more impressive than I realized watching on a camera. Seeing it in person, they just go clear across a court that is further than I would ever run. And they do that constantly. We're in their soft blankets together as if it were a warm tent. I don't actually think hockey has a huge problem with concussions, but I could be wrong about that. I mean, I definitely concussions happen, but I don't know if there's something about it where it's just not quite as severe as football, because I know it's really bad in football. Yeah, I guess some people just have that competitive instinct, Jump Store, and they have to do it. I didn't really share in that. We do have a lot of public tennis court switchery here, but I don't know. Tennis isn't super popular. It was more popular than I thought it was when it came around. There was a lot of people into it, but yeah, it was never super popular. Badminton has some purchase here. Not a huge amount, but more than I would expect. Only reason you and the family were in their soft blankets together, as if it were a warm tent in their very bodies. Were the poles. Yes, the brother and sister hugged each other tightly. Probably hearing the sluggish, slimy undulations of Cremboblin, is that it? Yeah. Once I noticed that it looked like Celebrimbor, now it just, my brain keeps defaulting to Celebrimbor. Witcher says, I was always bad at tennis. Turns out I have a fairly strong astigmatism, though, and no one ever got my eyes checked. Well, hopefully your life gets better with your eyes checked. I was bad at tennis because I don't have good reaction times. Jumpstore says, in my opinion, games are supposed to be fun. So if you're not having fun, you should play something else. I agree with that. I agree with that in a lot of different things. I've mentioned this before. People talk about, you know, I love writing and I want to be a writer. But I can never just get myself to write. And I'm like, I understand that there's like blocks and it can be hard to get over that hump and get into writing whatever else. But if you truly feel like you're fighting with yourself to get yourself to write, do you want to be a writer? Why don't you do something you enjoy then? Like, you can't stop me from writing. Writing is sort of how I interpret my world. I felt the same way when I used to play guitar. Like, you couldn't stop me from playing guitar. It was a cathartic thing for me. But people would say, well, yeah, no, I'd love to learn the guitar, but I just never can get myself to sit down and practice. Then don't play the guitar. Like, nobody needs you to play the guitar. Do things you enjoy. The thing that, here's my tip for the kids out there. If you're looking at hobbies, try them out. You know, the first month or two, or in some cases 3 of a hobby will be discouraging. That is true. You know, it's not going to feel good at first. But if you don't enjoy ever doing it unless you're forced to, then it's just a hobby. Do something else. This does not apply to school or anything like that. That's different. But if it's a hobby that you're doing voluntarily, you'll know you like it because no one could stop you doing it. Witchery says, listen, Celebrimbor would be a great Santa. I don't know if I agree with that. Perhaps too good. That's a lot of elven rings. That's a lot of rings. I mean, I guess in the books, he doesn't make the rest of the rings. His smiths do, but still. All right. Probably hearing the sluggish, slimy undulations of Cremboblin delivering their finely chosen gifts. The Great Eye then showed Cremboblin how the children Uncle Kitty says you are correct, I guess, Witchery. I should have put that together. Says Celebrimbor already has a workshop full of elves. He's most of the way there. By the way, I think more people know this now, but because obviously the Rings of Power is covering this story in their own rendition. But for those who don't know, Celebrimbor is the elf who works with, unknowingly, with Sauron to create the rings of power that become the centerpiece of the Lord of the Rings. But he only makes 3 rings without the interventions of Sauron, that are the Elven rings, which Gandalf wears one, Galadriel wears one, and who wears the third? Is it Elrond who wears the third in Lord of the Rings? I don't remember. I think it is. And then, but the other ones, the 9 for the mortal men doomed to die, that's the ones worn by the wraiths that follow him around and in the first part of the book. And then I don't really actually know what happened to the dwarven rings. I mean, I imagine they're just buried at the bottom of the mines because it drove them all crazy. Is that all? That's not all of them. Yeah, I guess that is all of them. I feel like there was another one. Oh, well, I mean, there's the one ring. Witchery says, by the time of Lord of the Rings, it's Elrond. Yeah, I guess it would be, wouldn't it? Whose ring does he have? The former king's? It was Gil-galad, but he's mega super dead. Yeah, that's right. Gil-galad. Consistently forget his name. The Great Eye then showed Cremboblin how the children were crowded around the glow of their cell phone. And as he turned his many ear slots, their direction, he heard them whisper, "Hello, 911. Some terrible slug is in our house, vomiting cricket bats. Please send help." It was then that Cremboblin, Witchery says 40-plus-year-old spoilers, I guess. Yeah. You know, I was explaining to a friend of mine when I was watching Rings of Power, is like, so look, Lord of the Rings is a story of redemption. So a lot of those stories are sort of have an optimistic and beautiful end. But what you don't know is that most of what Tolkien wrote, especially in the Second Age, where he really did a lot of his writing, is horrible tragedy all the time. So don't expect that. Lord of the Rings was weirdly optimistic, as was Hobbit, compared to all the stories that came before it. It was then that Cremboblin decided he should sneak away before another incident like last year occurred. I used to know the story of how the three elven rings moved around Witchery, but it's been about 4 or 5 years and it's slipped out of my head. It was then that Cremboblin decided that he should sneak away before another incident like last. I will say, at the risk of... oh, whatever, they're already mad. I actually think that there are things about the second season of Rings of Power, the changes they made, that makes Celebrimbor a bit more compelling of a character. I enjoy the flaws that they've injected into him. Because, like... I don't know. The original tale seems to go... it does that Tolkien thing where it just... you can never do wrong if you're the hero. Like, you can never be involved in any wrongdoing. Or you're doomed to die. Witchery says, yeah, the story set in the post-apocalyptic wasteland of a formerly glorious Middle-earth actually are the hopeful one. Yeah, and I don't think people know that. I don't think people realize that the Third Age is supposed to be like the one of ruin. Anyways, we'll see how people react to the endlessly bleak. I did wonder about that Witchery. I won't elaborate in case somebody watches this and doesn't know what happens. But I did wonder, I was like, are they going to have him back for just one scene next time for when Sauron's marching? But I guess that was their sort of ode to it, because they were like, it plays better in writing than it would on TV. It was then that Cremboblin decided he should sneak away before another incident like last year. So, with a Yeah. 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 And to all a good night. Cremboblin the Nog Monster writhed his thin near transparent body up the chimney like so many grubs burrowing into a meal. Witchery says, please, I beg. I don't think people would be prepared. I think, honestly, if you only knew the movies and you were one of those really gatekeepy fans, but you obviously hadn't read the books, or at least the beyond the mainline books, I don't think you'd be prepared for how brutal and gruesome a lot of the stuff that happens in the Second Age is. Celebrimbamner being one of them. As he spilled out, steaming onto the snow-dusted roof. I will say, actually, I think I was a little skeptical on their actor for Sauron at first. But especially this season, I really feel like he did a great job, based on my understanding from the books. And they didn't violate the one thing that I was really worried they were going to violate, which is in Tolkien's world, evil does not create. It just sort of is a parasite. At best, it mutates what good creates. And Sauron just is incompetent at making anything. So he just has to get other people to do it for him. And I was afraid they were going to slip on that, but they didn't. Yeah, I didn't love him as that character either. Anyways, I think I've alienated my entire chat. Nobody wants to hear me talk this much about Lord of the Rings, so I'm gonna move on. As he spilled out steaming on the snow-dusted roof like a newborn. From the mother's womb. Yeah, he did. And I'm glad they never wavered on the fact that he just can't make. All he can do is manipulate. Because I think that's one of the best features of the Tolkien world, is that he so adequately understands that there are no great evil craftsmen. They're just parasites. They don't do anything themselves. They don't have the patience, focus, or strength of character to learn how to do anything. They just take from people who do. And I feel like that's one of his more salient observations in his world. As he spilled out steaming on the snow-dust roof like a newborn from the mother's wombs, the screams and cries of Jumpstar says, well, Witchery wants to hear more at least. She probably doesn't get very many opportunities in real life. You know, probably you do. I know for me anyways, it doesn't, if you bring up Lord of the Rings, yeah, 80% of the room is detached, but then the 20% who isn't, they're like locked in. Like, what have you read? What was the name of these kids again? Whatever. I mean, I'm acting like, you know, I've got a great big popular stream I need to tend to. Stream views are like halved from even a month ago. It's fine. I'll talk about whatever. Bob and Junket. That's it. The screams and cries of Bob and Junket were holding a long choral note that sat in a strange harmony with the wailing sirens of the National Guard. Approaching in the distance. It seemed that the incident last year had spurned a response plan should the horrid Santa worm return. Witcher says, I happen to know a lot of nerds, but mostly online. Yeah, I think that's fair, Jumpstore. You do what you enjoy. Because I will say that the movies do a pretty good job of capturing a lot of what goes on in the books and stuff, but the books still just fundamentally feel different. And I think in a way that if the movies were the best thing you ever watched, you might not actually like the books that much. That's not obviously true for a lot of people, but I think that's true for enough. And you know me, I like adaptations. I like spin-offs. I like different takes of stories. I think that's how narrative stays alive. I know Tolkien didn't, and his son especially didn't. Well, Tolkien didn't like his stuff doing that. He was fine with using it for his own. But yeah, I don't think people should have to engage more than they want with any content. Oh, Witchery says, I got someone to read the Silmarillion when they've not read the trilogy. How? Why? Why would they do that? Nobody needs to do that. I mean, I will say, if you have a good memory and you read the Silmarillion, you will definitely get more out of Lord of the Rings, but... Witcher says, Christopher was fussier than his dad. Yes, absolutely. Christopher was, frankly, unreasonable. But I get why. I mean, they're what, he had left of his beloved father, so I don't blame him for it. It seemed that the incident last year had spurned a response plan, an emergency response plan, a national emergency response plan, should the horrid Santa worm return. Cremboblin was not deterred. However, and waved to the children as the reindeer shrieked in fear, and Cremboblin's soft body absorbed the streams of gunfire. Oh, Genera's here. Genera, we're just wrapping up. I had to read it to believe it. You know, it's a weird book. It's a hard one to defend. I'm not even really sure it needed to exist, but it's an interesting one. I will say it spurred a trend I don't love in fantasy, but I think he did a fine job with it. However, Cremboblin was not deterred and waved to the children as the reindeer shrieked in fear and Cremboblin's soft body absorbed the streams of gunfire. Without opening so much as a single wound in his oozing body. He waved to the I don't know what the modern is, but let's say F-16 fighter jets. That swooped overhead and gargled the words yak, yak, yak. And to all a good night. Witchery says it didn't need to exist. There are rap battles with lesser gods. That is true. I do like the idea that Witchery wrote the word Morgoth, which is the original sort of Dark Lord that Sauron served. It autocorrected to Margoth, and I like the idea that there's like an odd couple or a married couple, and it's like Morgoth, terrible thing, but he's got to get home to Margoth or she's gonna have his head on a platter. Like a sitcom. Gotta get back to the void or Margoth will. Genera says, I remember Crumplebottom. Do you remember who named him? Because I was trying to remember who named him. It's such a great name. You watch it be me, and it'll just make me look vain. I'm pretty sure it wasn't me, though. Alright, folks. I could never keep track of the names. I do know Melkor was never named from, but I don't remember. If you're coming to this part of the show, it's because you just want to know what we came up with. But what we came up with was a horrible monster who is replacing the job of Santa Claus. And it's a sequel, not so much a continuation, but a sequel to a story we did last Christmas, using the game The Claws of Substitute Santa. And the premise of the game is you make a terrible cryptid monster, and Santa asks you to fill in for him because he's sick, and then you roll a d20 and you get prompts for the house, and there's a bit more mechanics to it, but I'll leave it. If you want to try this game yourself, they have a bunch of community copies because the foolish internet will not try this wonderful game, and they definitely should. And give them some love and ratings over there. I feel bad because it is actually a really fun concept for a game, and we've had so much fun with it. I will have a link to it pinned in a comment below when the stream's no longer live. But let's read the story we came up with this year, keeping in mind that it's a character we created last year. but it has slightly different motivation this time. It was a frozen evening near the North Pole when Cremboblin, look at that first outing, misspelled it, in a bathtub collecting the noggy mucus of his many mouths, decided that his good friend Santa Claus was entirely too stressed to do Christmas deliveries this year. Now, Cremboblin knew the proud old man would never admit he needed a year off, but Cremboblin was not one to be deterred by the boundaries or persistent requests of friends. He was, after all, much older than Santa. He was also stronger and had a much more plentiful crop of mouths. At least 7 more limbs than him, each with a great deal more joints and much more capacity to break even steel. And a number of eyes, rarely consistent, but never so low as to be a mere 2, like Santa. For the job, Santa's job, which required awareness of peering children and the rapid delivery of several packages, Cremboblin saw himself as the more suited between the two of them to the task than any waddling old fat man in a fur suit. Last year, in Cremboblin's opinion, he did an excellent job if one was to forgive and forget about a few news stories and investigations by the CIA. So Cremboblin slurped his wobbling body from the tub and set out to make the best Christmas his horrible nature could surmise. He started with his gift to Cremboblin's good friend Santa. Cremboblin's gift, of course, was to wrap his tendrils around the doughy body of Santa, whipping him out of his shower with a delightful scream of surprise, then stuffing the old man into one of Cremboblin's finest human cages, and leaving him near the lava in his lair so Santa would keep warm while he did his job. There were some objections by the elves as Cremboblin collected up the gifts and borrowed Santa's sled. The elves were satisfied to let Cremboblin handle it in the end, though, after he gifted them a net of his own nog slime that held them fast to the ground, writhing like little parasites. With a from Cremboblin as he rose into the sky, the night that ended Christmas joy began. Cremboblin, when he cleared the snow clouds above the North Pole's factories, and finally had the benefit of an unobstructed silver moonlight, checked his list, and he had indeed need to check it twice, for the spatters of blood upon it were blocking a few vowels of the names here and there. The first 2 names on Cremboblin's absconded list were Nebob and Junket. An adoptive pair of siblings celebrating their first Christmas together. Cremboblin knew he had to make it special for them in the way that only he could, so he writhed forth on the sleigh high in the sky, sliding over the vomited nog mucus his many mouths endlessly spilled, and whipped the terrified reindeer into a frenzy that brought the whole operation cascading in a side slide across the humble roof of the children's home. Once Cremboblin had sufficiently anchored the sleigh to the roof to ensure the terrified reindeer wouldn't take off while he slithered into the siblings' house, he wound his massive but surprisingly soft body, like so many overcooked vegetables, down the chimney until his gibbering form had spread out over the carpets under the glow of sweet Christmas lights. Then the great writhing blob heaved and twisted until 2 of its dozens of mouths regurgitated 2 flat cricket bats. The bats were chosen specifically by Cremboblin to help the new siblings bond, for the all-seeing eye which spoke to the Red Santa also spoke to the mind of Cremboblin, and there, chanting low in forgotten tongues with eyes as black as pitch, Cremboblin saw the 2 dear children in their small room just a hallway away. Their walls were papered in posters of cricket champions mugging with great golden cups and other trophies. Indeed, they were both fans, and the 2 siblings, only recently joined as family, were cuddled in their soft blankets together as if it were a warm tent, and their bodies were the very poles holding it up. Yes, the brother and sister hugged each other tightly, probably hearing the sluggish, slimy undulations of Cremboblin delivering their finely chosen gifts with great excitement. The great eye then showed Cremboblin how the children were crowded around the glow of their cell phone. And as Cremboblin turned his many ear slots their direction, he heard them whisper, "Hello, 911. Some terrible slug is in our house vomiting cricket bats. Please send help." It was then that Cremboblin decided he should sneak away before another incident like last year. And so with a Cremboblin the Nog Monster writhed his near-transparent body up the chimney like so many grubs burrowing into a meal. As he spilled out steaming on the snow-dusted roof like a newborn from the mother's womb, the screams and cries of Nebob and Junket, the siblings in the room below, were holding a long choral note, wail even, that sat in a strange harmony with the wailing sirens of the National Guard approaching in the distance. It seemed that the incident last year with Cremboblin had spurned a national emergency response plan, should the horrid, as the newspapers called it, Santa worm return. However, Cremboblin was not deterred. Rarely ever was such an old beast deterred. It's a lesson we could all take, kids. And waved to the children as the reindeer shrieked in fear ahead of his sleigh, and Cremboblin's soft body absorbed the streams of gunfire from below without so much as opening a single wound in his oozing body, rather. He then waved the F-16 fighter jets that swooped overhead and gargled the words, "Glok, glok, glok, 10 to all, a good night." Jumpstore says, "I just used my laptop to watch the first episode and Rory, you are the namer." Well, now I just feel vain. Thought I was giving someone a compliment and it was just me going, "Oh, ho, ho, what a funny name I've come up with." But thank you for finding out, Jumpstore. All right. I like that we've made Cremboblin less sympathetic this time. I think I wrote less in twice the time than I did the last time I did this, which I think really tells you how the stream is going and maybe why the views have dropped off. Well, anyways, hopefully you folks out there enjoyed it. Witchery says, "You're so vain. You probably think this name is about you." You know, I didn't even know the original version of that song. I only knew the Queens of the Stone Age cover of it for ages. I knew it was a cover. And then I found out it was a rather famous song that somehow I just missed. Now I know both versions. Witchery says, "But we had fun." That is the point, right? And many rings. It's good to hear from all you folks. I'm glad that Genera and I was going to call it Kitty Wolf, Zombie Wolf were able to make to drop by, and Jumpstore and GS and Uncle Kitty, and I know Tammy is out there recovering. I forgot to mention that at the beginning of the stream. I apologize for that. I was a little flustered because I was late. It has been fun for me, if no one else. And after all, that's what we're here to do. Watch me have fun. No, I can't. Anyhow, thank you very much, everybody, for your recommendations and your suggestions with the game. I think... Is next week the last one? Let me double check the calendar before I commit to that. Yes. Next week is our last 2 streams of the year. I then take a week off at Christmas. I might actually, just because of how Tuesday and Thursday line up in the second week, I might actually be gone for 2 weeks. We'll see how that goes. But what I will say is, because it is the last week of the year, we're going to do, why not keep tradition? We're going to do another of Fox Curio's Floating Bookshop. I don't really know what angle I'll take for the Christmas this year, but so many angles we could take. And as far as what we're going to do on Tuesday, I have no idea. I'll keep looking for some good Christmas tales. Anyhow, to the rest of you, have yourself... Yes, Jumpstore, I will admit, I did do this stream based on your request, but I also had fun doing it. So I'll take the credit and the enjoyment. But beyond that, I'll see you folks next week, and then I'll see you in 2025, where you don't have to stay. Well, you kind of do. Time works that way. But you can't stay here. Get out of my shop.
Finns det några snälla barn här?